Welcome to the Immigrant Finance Podcast, a show dedicated to everything money, online business, and immigration, because immigrant families deserve to build generational wealth too. I'm your host, Adina, social entrepreneur, an immigration attorney, and financial educator and coach for immigrant families. I created the Immigrant Finance platform with my husband Mauricio, who immigrated to the US 8 years ago after we struggled through the whole process of trying to figure out finances as an immigrant family alone. We wanted to share what we learned about building wealth with others along the way and created the Immigrant Finance School Group Coaching Program, where we teach immigrants and their families like you how to manage their money, get started investing, and build online businesses in just weeks, all with group accountability and support. Our clients have been able to get started investing and develop lifelong plans to build generational wealth regardless of their immigration status, actually launched an online business they've been dreaming of starting for years, bring in enough income to leave a job with a shitty boss, and book up their calendar for the rest of the month just after announcing their new coaching business. I'm coming to you with a new show several times a week with stories about online business lessons, money and mindset insights, and guest interviews to help you become financially empowered. Each episode will switch between personal finance and online business topics. Now let's get to this week's episode. You know how it does that? Okay, here we go. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for having me here, Lucy. I always love our conversations. And you just always serve so much from the heart. So it's great to be a friend and colleague of yours. So for those of you I haven't met, I'm Adina. It's very nice to meet you. Adina here from Immigrant Finance. So I am an immigration attorney by training. I'm at a nonprofit doing immigration law in my day job. And then immigrant finance is something I do with my husband, Mauricio. We created this basically after struggling through the whole process of trying to figure out the US financial system when he immigrated here from Ecuador in 2013. And although I'm personally not an immigrant, I'm like third generation. I went through everything with him of, not knowing whether he could have a bank account or a credit card or invest. And we really struggled a lot financially because of that for years. And our goal is really to help more people not have to go through that and be able to save time and not have as much pain going through it. And then, I also, bring my lens from this work being a couple generations down. It was my great grandparents were refugees fleeing for their lives. And what that experience has taught me is how much the mindset stuff of money gets passed down if you don't actively work on improving your money relationship, because I have a lot of scarcity mindset I've been working through from that experience. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think the mindset, right? The scarcity mindset, but also the fear of investing. As a mompreneur, I'm pretty sure that you also have to invest in your business constantly and yourself, right? So
Absolutely.
Even making those decisions of like, okay, I'm gonna start investing on, the next step. There's always this mindset trap sometimes that gets on the way. And I don't know if you feel that way, but I feel like it's like a new level, new devil kind of mentality sometimes that we have to say, no, go away. We can do it.
Yeah, we started talking about the first time we spoke, I think, like just like the discomfort charging for your value. I remember we talked about. But yeah, I mean, all of those insecurities and fears and doubts that we all have and that entrepreneurs have, they come up every time you up level, every time you go to the next level. And people don't talk about it. People think that you just show they're successful or whatever. But for me, what was helpful was to realize that like all entrepreneurs are going through that stuff all the time. They just don't talk about it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this year, 2021, was one of the years where I really invested money in myself, which, obviously I invested in like, my college and my career, but I never invested in like coaching and all these systems, right, to make our life easier. So it has been a journey for me because I also have to, make choices and decide, okay, do I want to invest this money on the business or do I want to invest the money on like doing something for myself, right? And so it's just kind of a little bit of a struggle sometimes to find the balance because I love the mission that you guys have, and I believe in the mission of my coaching business as well. But sometimes it's just scary. It's just so scary to like push the buy now button because you're like, oh my god, what am I doing? Is it gonna work? And we start creating this mentality of like the what ifs, right? So
no, 100%. I always joke with people, the first time I ever did business coaching, I deleted it for a year because I had never invested in myself. I was always used to taking care of everyone else but myself, and I, had this passion. I knew I wanted to explore. I didn't know how to do it. And I found the perfect coach for me. Everyone's going to have their own fit for who's the right person. I found the perfect coach and I knew it. And I was just terrified to invest in myself. I'd never done it. So I spent a year telling everyone I knew to go work with her. And I didn't do it. And then I realized the year I wasted, first of all, I lost a year of personal growth and growing immigrant finance. But I also lost a lot of money we could have been making during that year, just because I was so afraid. And so this is actually a really good segue to the topic for today for overworking, because it turns out, I don't know if you agree, I want to hear your thoughts after. What I found is the secret to building wealth and growing a business, which is one of the best ways to grow wealth, is investing in yourself and investing in the business. And it's so counterintuitive because in the personal finance world, we're taught budget, have no spend days, just focus on paying off debt. But in reality, that's not how wealthy people operate. And that's not how you grow wealth. You're not going to get wealthy by just budgeting and paying off debt. Like, you have to be spending money in good investments that are going to lead to more money. It's not going to happen alone. What do you think about that?
No, absolutely. And so let's go ahead and jump into the topic, right? Yeah. We're talking about why immigrants need to stop overworking. And I 100% agree with you. I think that sometimes we're taught or told, right, but these personal finance gurus that we have to cut spending, that we have to, eat the same thing the whole week. And that doesn't work. I know it didn't work for me. Like, for the longest time, I was like, I cannot eat the same thing every day.
Yeah.
And so, even now, I spend money on myself and things that I enjoy, but I feel that I'm more intentional with my spending, right? And I'm way less impulsive. Like, I used to. I've shared before that I used to buy clothing when I was happy. I used to buy clothing when I was sad. Yeah. I used to buy, clothing when I was just like overexcited. I used to buy clothing to celebrate, whatever. Like, I was just constantly consuming, buying. Yeah. And now I still do that, but I don't do it at the same scale. Like, I'm more about quality versus quantity, right?
Absolutely.
And also comfort, because having the little girls is sometimes you have to have the dresses that stretch a little bit more.
Yeah, we both have daughters. I know what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah, no, 100%, because like, you don't see wealthy people eating the same food every day and budgeting. And like, of course there's a middle ground. Like, you have to learn to budget and spend money wisely and be mindful of your spending, like what you're talking about, and be really clear about your goals, right? And have everything designed around that. But at a certain point, if you're just like pinching pennies, that's not going to make you wealthy. You don't see wealthy people doing that. They're constantly investing in themselves. They're constantly investing, growing in their businesses. They know how to leverage debt to make more money, to buy property, to scale their businesses. So that's kind of a good segue to the overworking thing. It's a little different, but with overworking, it's along those lines of like, let me punish myself, just like with budgeting and, very, very severely, and not letting yourself enjoy life, right? Or grow or make investments in yourself. If you're just working constantly, that's only going to get you so far, because we only have 24 hours in the day. That's not going to be a way to build wealth either. And there's such an important mission, I think, for immigrants need to adopt, where you're not adopting what this society has told you you need to be as someone who is a source of labor, as someone who is a source of disposable labor or cheap labor. I mean, look back at, I could go on and on about how this originates in the immigration laws. I don't know if we want to go there, but like
No, I know what you're talking about. It definitely is, but I think that sometimes it's also hard for immigrants to not see themselves, as someone who's constantly working more than 8 hours a day, because that's all, right? Like that's all we know. So it's like,
yeah. And it goes to the mindset stuff that you talked about in the beginning. I was just talking with someone in our community this week who was telling me that, she basically has this opportunity to get promoted and be a director in her job, and she cannot see herself that way. She can see herself only as a worker, and she grew up cleaning houses with her mom, and that's all she knows as in terms of her potential, and she's so incredibly qualified and provides so much value that she keeps getting these opportunities, but she can't see herself that way. And we talked about how, like, you're not meant to just work and do things for other people and just implement. Like, you have ideas, you have potential to offer, and like, you can use your time more smartly.
Yeah, and I think that some of that could also come from her experience of not seeing someone that looked like her in a leadership position, right? I know for many young immigrants, it's hard to see themselves as the CEO, the CFO of a company, because they see themselves at the lower level, right? At the lower, I guess, at the entry level positions, and it's hard. I mean, sometimes you have the desire to say, okay, maybe I'll go for that position, maybe I'll apply for it, but when they don't see the representation, they can be what they can see, right?
Yeah.
And so overcoming those obstacles to stop overworking sometimes can be pretty hard.
That's such a good point. Absolutely. So how does that inspire you? Because I know you've been such a leader for such a long time and climbed up the ladder.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know me or my story, I actually started working when I was 16 as a housekeeper. And my dream job was to work in the hospitality industry. So I was able to work my way up until I became the general manager of these hotels. And I loved that job, which was nice. But, when we did the podcast interview, for me, I was always a curious person. Like, I don't think I'm the smartest person in any room that I enter, but I'm definitely the most curious. So for me, like, so curiosity was always something that I had growing up. Like, I've always asked myself, like, what could happen if I do this and that? Like, that was always my mentality. And even now, I feel like I still work that way. So for me, I always wanted to be ahead. Like, okay, I'm going to be a housekeeper. I'm going to do a good job, cleaning the 20, 15 rooms a day. I took a lot of pride of that.
Yeah.
And I remember some of my coworkers complaining, like, oh my God, like, how come you like cleaning so much? Like, this is kind of gross. And I was like, listen, for me, this is my mentality. Every day I show up thinking that this is, a job that is a respected job. Like, there's nothing wrong cleaning toilets. Like, that's what we're hired for, right? And so I always saw myself of like, I'm only going to be here today. Like, I never thought about like, I'm going to be cleaning rooms for 5 years or even a month. Like, I always focus like in the now. Mm-hmm. And then I also used to joke around and saying like, oh, I'm going to clean rooms and, just have like awesome arms because I'm moving my arm all day, just cleaning. and so as I was, in this entry level position, I started thinking ahead, like, what is that person doing, right? Like, my curiosity will come in and say, like, Lucy, if that person is working front desk, what does she know that you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for the next position. Like, okay, now I'm front desk. Like, what does the bartender know that I don't know? And that was my least favorite job, to be honest with you, because I had a lot of people that, will see me. Obviously, back then I was much younger, but will see me working at a bar, and they come with all this mentality of like, oh, she's a young girl, and I was like, nope, I'm here to work. Don't get any ideas. And so after that, my curiosity again, like, what is the office manager doing that I don't know? So I was always curious, and I think that in a way that allowed me to move up quicker.
Yeah.
But I also had this mentality of constantly being overworking. I mean, once I was on the top, I wasn't working, 8 hours a day. I was working 12, 14 hours a day, and I was working sometimes weekends. So when I stopped working there, my mentality of overworking, was something that I had to overcome, because I feel like I feel a lot of guilt, to be honest with you. I feel like I was in a privileged position to not have to go to a 9-to-5 job. And I feel guilty because that's all I knew, right? And so then I started thinking like, okay, like, why do you feel this way? Like, is this a legitimate reason for you to feel that way? Or is it because you're starting something new and you have to get out of your comfort zone, right? I mean, even just doing these lives, I get more comfortable as I go, but every once in a while, I do get like, oh my God, who's gonna watch me, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I think that like our mission is bigger than our fears, for sure. And that's why we show up. So
absolutely.
I want to return back to you because I know that, your husband is also an immigrant. And so have you talked to him about like the topic of overworking, and how does he feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's come up a lot because he actually left his job in end of March, primarily to take care of our young daughter during, it was COVID. Personally, we weren't really comfortable at the time sending her out of the house. And he's someone who had been here about 8 years and had multiple different jobs, the majority of which were he was treated like shit. Let's be honest. Like he had a lot of pseudo labor abuse situations, a lot of being overworked and underpaid. He only got benefits for the first time in his most recent job that he started like a year ago. So we went through a lot of him, going through that experience as an immigrant, of being treated poorly in the workplace and being treated as someone that, was just going to work a lot and do something to grow someone else's business or whatever. And so in some ways, I mean, it's been really complicated, and there's a lot of gender dynamics to navigate when your husband leaves, his job and all that. But in some ways it's like, I believe it's like a radical act of resistance for him to do after going through that, to be like, you know what, I'm gonna like do what's best for my family and grow immigrant finance, and have more time for that, and like not have to hustle so much and be so stressed all the time. Like he was miserable when he was going through that and being treated poorly, and it affected our relationship, affected his everyday life. So, and it's not like he was getting paid a lot by any means. It was just to survive. It was just to make it in this country. I mean, we went through several years where, he was very, very fortunate to have a visa through his job, but it was temporary and it was for a few months at a time. He was at an international organization. And so we went through a few years where every few months we didn't know if he was going to lose his visa and have to leave the country.
Wow.
And if we'd be in the same country together, what we would do. We were very fortunate to have the option to get married, and I'm a US citizen, and have that be the option, but he like didn't want to get married for that reason, so it was just very complicated and very stressful for a long time, which gives you an idea of why like finance and immigration really hits home for us.
Right, absolutely. Well, I think the fact that, just by you sharing that little bit about him says a lot about him as a person and his work ethic, and the fact that, you just said like he didn't want to get married for that reason. I think that says a lot about you guys as a couple, right? Because now you're a family.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's important that people get married for the right reasons, obviously. But I know that there's a lot of, immigrants out there that struggle with that too, because they feel like they have to get married, to be able to have a status, and it's tough. I know it's tough for some of them.
Yeah, and I mean, I have no disrespect for anyone who chooses. I mean, there's multiple reasons why people get married in general, right? I mean, this is a whole other topic, but like,
yeah,
as an immigration lawyer, I've had plenty of clients who have gotten married for multiple reasons, and I fully support that, Anyway, but you got to do what feels true to you. But the point is, like, for him to go through 8 years of overworking and being treated terribly and stuff, and then have the freedom to have options that having an online business can give you, right? Or having your own business can give you. And I've seen this with many of our clients too. We have one client right now who has been working at a low paid job for a long time. She recently started her business, and she's able to leave her job now. And she had been working so hard for so long, so many hours, not getting paid a lot. And now, like, she's doing better than ever, and she's going to be able to work less and have more time with her kids. So what I really want to drive home for people is, like, it's so important to not just work for the sake of it and see yourself as a worker, like to start to see yourself as someone who can be a business owner, as someone who can be an investor, as someone who can, even if it's working 9-to-5 job, like work smartly, not more. Like you can maybe probably do a better job at your job working smart instead of just working all the time.
Yeah. And negotiate your salaries, right? If that's what people are choosing, like working the 9 to 5s, that's okay, right? Like I think that entrepreneurship is not for everyone,
right?
But also, if people are having their 9 to 5s, it's so important that they advocate for themselves, that they ask for the raises that they deserve. And also do the homework, right? Like do your homework, find out if you're being compensated accordingly, get a game plan going. And when it's time for you to have your performance evaluation, ask for more money. But you have to do a lot of preparation, right? Not only the research of your salary, but also you have to have these like mentality of like, practicing what are they gonna tell me? Are they gonna say no? And if they tell me no, how am I gonna react, right? Because you have to practice a lot of emotional intelligence, which is something that I learned, down the road. But I feel like a lot of immigrants are not really comfortable asking for more money because, they feel like, okay, well, I'm new to this country. I'm gonna see how it goes, and I'll just do it later, right? And then they get in the habit of never doing it, and they're losing money. Or there's other immigrants that are here for other reasons, like maybe refugees that also say, I should be just grateful I have a job, and I should be just okay, like, with whatever money they offer me. But we have to learn to advocate for ourselves as as an immigrant, as a female immigrant particularly, because there's a huge wage gap as well. So I think that you're sharing a lot of great information with us. What kind of systems have you guys implemented in your business to really help overwork, right? Because it's an online business now that you have. And I know that there's a lot of systems that you can automate. But do you want to tell me, like, what has been like the one that you're like, I'm so glad I invested in that system so I don't have to be overworking?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like a quick answer to that, and then I want to give some context before I go further. Like a quick answer is, I think I had to learn, just like with the business coaching, I had to learn that like it will help save you time and make more money if you invest in your business. That was only kind of like a recent lesson, honestly. But like things like your email software, you know, paying a little bit more to have more automation capabilities. Um, if you use like a CRM is a way to kind of track potential customers. And so like HubSpot is a great option that's free. There's a lot of free options out there, honestly. Let's see. One really easy thing that makes a huge difference is if you offer consultations, you can set up an automation with something called Zapier. Do you use Zapier?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it will like connect it. So someone books the consultation and then it automatically will send a Google Calendar invite that has a Zoom link, right? And then you know, if you give for the person notice that they would be added to your email list, they could also be added to your email list automatically. So little things like that that seem really basic can just free up a lot of headspace and save you from doing a lot of administrative work.
Yeah, that way you don't have to be like, oh my God, I have to send her the link. I have to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you guys are investing in systems, right? Because yeah, that's part of I think that's also part of the immigrant experience, that we are taught to do it all, right?
Yeah.
That if you're not doing it all, someone else is gonna do it wrong, or that you just shouldn't trust anyone to do it, right? Like I know in my family, a lot of that mentality of like, you know, don't tell people how you're doing things. Don't show weakness. Like you don't want to be seen as someone that doesn't know what they're doing. And now I'm like the opposite. I'm the first one to say like, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Like there's so much to know, particularly in the personal finance space. Like I feel like I'm comfortable with like various topics, and then there's something else that I learn and I'm like, wow, like this is just, I'm in the perfect industry, by the way, now, because I'm constantly looking for ways to learn more. And so I get that with personal finance.
It's fascinating.
And having an online business, right? Because we have to automate, we have to stop overworking and really not be like, okay, I left my 9 to 5, but now I'm working like 7 to 7 or, you know, even longer. So
yeah. And I wanted to give more context to like from my perspective being a third generation, you know, great grandchild of immigrants. So I only kind of got in touch with this side of me recently, but like the more I've gotten into this concept of like overworking, realizing I am an overworker, right? and figuring out how to get out of that. The more I've seen that it's really part of my family's immigrant experience. Like everything you just described has been passed down in my family through the generations. And it's like, it's like the survival mode, the like not wanting to ask for help, like having to figure it all out yourself, like just work, like be productive all the time, multitask constantly so you can get as many things done as possible, like never rest. Like, and I think about my grandparents who were children of immigrants and my parents who grew up seeing family members coming in from Eastern Europe and, you know, 10 people in a one bedroom apartment, just arriving to the country. Like they have it so ingrained in them that they worked constantly. All of them worked all the time and like never relaxed. And that was their identity. Right.
Yeah.
And I can see it play out, you know, how I've always been a very ambitious person, just like you. I think we connect over that. But like I have seen in my life how it's played out, where I have always been like so focused and productive. And it's like you have to realize at a certain point that that comes from survival and that comes from scarcity. And that's not a place of abundance. And you're not going to reach abundance constantly doing that and chasing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you know, investing in coaching definitely has helped me a whole lot for me, because I was a multitasker. I was always I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And now having a family, and having my girls who are, very young, they're only 3 years old and almost 2. And so deciding like, okay, I can save $200 on these tasks, or I can give up my time with them, right? And so that's kind of how I evaluated that mentality now of like not overworking. Like,
same, I'm there too.
Okay, yeah, what am I gonna give up to save a couple $100? And the funny thing is that sometimes with my husband, he's always so positive and full of energy. And sometimes he'll say like, for example, like the oil change in our car. He loves doing that. He loves doing it. And I'm always telling him, you can just take it somewhere and like have people do it, right? And he just enjoys it. And sometimes when I'm like, just delegate that, like it's only like $50 or whatever, and he'll look at me and say like, but I love doing that, like I enjoy it. And I'm like, okay. So sometimes it's okay to give up all the tasks that maybe you don't like, because there's people that find joy in like fixing a car or changing the oil or baking. I will give up baking any day of the week. Like I don't enjoy that. But just this mentality that we have to always be on the go it's not productive. And earlier today you talk about how the wealthy people are very meticulous. Maybe you didn't use that word, but about like how they invest. And I've been reading a lot of different books that are not necessarily about finance, but like mindset and all these good habits that the millionaires have. And a few that really kind of stood up to me was the fact that they're huge on investing in their health, right?
Yeah.
So huge on like their mental health, their physical health, their internal health, like taking vitamins, like eating all these healthy foods and things like that. And I think sometimes, immigrants have that mentality of like working longer hours so they can have, the best food or the best clothes. But in reality, like, I like to challenge people that are watching to really think about like, what are they doing to take care of their bodies, right? Because anyone can have money, but if you don't have the health that you need to manage your money and grow your money, like that's the whole building wealth is so pointless too. So do you take care of your body, or any tips that you want to share with us?
Oh, that's a good question. I in December was like, I want to take my health seriously. And so I started doing keto. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yeah.
I'm not a dieter or anything. I never done diets, but I just wanted like something that made me feel good, So I do like a light keto version. And a few months ago, I finally, after like years of resisting, finally started meditating like about 5 days a week in the morning, and like trying to like work out in the morning a little bit. So little things like that make a huge difference. I'm really big on going on walks with my daughter. I love doing that. Like at the end of the day, that's a good way to get workouts in. But I'm so glad you brought the physical aspect in of health, and because something that stuck out to me when you said that was, I've had so many people in our community tell me that they see their parents who are been working for 30 years and they're doing construction. And I can't tell you how many people have said to me, my dad is 70 years old and he's still working in construction, and his body, can't take it, and he has no retirement plan. He's never invested, right? Because he didn't know he could. And it's crazy. And it's like, this is happening to a lot of people. And so I really want to highlight that the overworking part has that physical impact on people's bodies, and no one should have to be doing hard physical labor at 7 years old. It does not have to be that way. And I know, there's all these things like well, there's different barriers immigrants face, of course. Things are harder and sometimes people don't have a choice not to do that. But there's ways you can be having your money work smarter for you so you don't have to do that, like investing. Anybody can
Yeah.
invest. You can be undocumented and you can invest. All you need is an I-10, right? And so I just would really encourage people to like figure out how can you get your finances working for you so that your body doesn't have to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's huge because, you know, so some of us are also our parents' retirement plan, right? So I
Yes.
think that that's also important as a first gen that
Yeah.
we take care of our bodies, because you're not just taking care of yourself or, the people that are in your household. Like, there's a lot of first gen that are literally their parents' retirement
Oh yeah.
plan,
Lots
and
of
it
people.
doesn't have to be that way. And so, yeah, definitely thinking of systems, right, that they can help them stop overworking and investing. I think the biggest takeaway is really investing in themselves,
Yeah.
so they can find systems or a new way to also not depend on just one income, right? Because I think that's the other hard part for many immigrants, right? That the mentality that the only way to earn money is through a 9 to 5. Like, you can have
Yeah.
your 9 to 5 and you can have your side business or your side hustle, or
Absolutely.
finding other ways to really make money work for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to talk to you about the importance of, understanding um, your credit score as an immigrant, because I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there,
Yes, there is.
as far as like why it's so important. So do you want to give us maybe a few points on that?
Yeah, I might have kind of a unique perspective on this. I'm not sure where, what you'll think, but I actually don't think credit scores are as important as people make them out. That's kind of my main point on credit scores. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I talk to a lot of people who are just like, oh, my credit score, and they're so worried about it, and it's this huge deal. And it is important, right? It is important to do things that are gonna help you build wealth, like be able to buy property, to get a mortgage out, you have to have credit score, or to get a business loan if you want to grow your business and need a loan, like things like that. But it's not as important as cash flow of like learning how to make money,
Right.
right? Like if your credit score is amazing, but you don't know how to make money or you're not investing, it doesn't really matter. And at some point, you're not
Right.
having a good credit score isn't going to get you that far. So that's kind of my take on it. But I do think it's important if you have no credit history in the US to definitely get that started. And so I always encourage people to get like a secured credit card or starter credit card to start building credit, just so you do have those options.
Right.
Yeah. What about you? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I definitely agree with what you said. When, as you know, I was doing some financial literacy circles in my community last year, and I brought in a credit score expert, and she opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't even think about, when it comes to credit. Because I was, under this impression that, like, you have to have good credit score, or, people are not gonna let you borrow money, or, they're gonna take advantage of you, and all these things that, some of it is true, but not all of it is true. And so she presented a case of someone who was actually a real client. They just changed the name, and all of that. But they talk about how this person had like a really poor credit score on paper, but he is in fact one of the wealthiest person around the region. And I think, to me, like, that was the moment when I was like, okay, so it's important when you need money,
right?
Like, to borrow money, but you don't need it to build wealth. So I think that was the moment when I was like, wait a second, tell me about that. And so, yeah, I think that people definitely, it's important for them that they understand it. but also that they don't feel that, a credit score defines them as a person. I
Absolutely.
had some girls that I coached that, that's exactly how they feel when they were reviewing their credit score. They feel ashamed. They feel like, they like a lot of shame, a lot of like, oh, I'm not a good person. It's like, it's just a number. Like,
yeah,
you have to understand that it's just a number. But the other thing that I think is kind of hilarious to me when it comes to like explaining the credit score in the credit report, some of the personal finance gurus say like, oh, it's just like your SAT. And it's like, okay, well, if you're an immigrant, you probably don't really know what a freaking SAT is, right? And then if you're a first gen, you definitely don't understand the SAT. So I think that, how they present it is kind of like silly sometimes, because if you're someone that has been here for a long time and you're established, you understand the importance of the SAT, which is, the way they measure your knowledge when it's time for you to go to college. But I just think it's hilarious that they keep using that. And I'm like, people don't understand. I mean, even now, obviously I'm done with college and all of that, but I never really understood SAT. So
it's
find a new way.
It's a good example of how like the whole personal finance world is not designed for immigrants.
Yeah.
So to give that example, or like, 401k, it's like, no one in my family has ever had benefits before. Why are you talking about 401ks and like getting my employer match? Like,
but I think that, that just being curious, it's a good takeaway from this life too, that if you don't understand something, ask. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's also a lot of educated immigrants that come from, other countries. And in their country, they were, a dentist, a nurse, an engineer, and they come here and now they're, working at a restaurant or cleaning rooms or whatever because of the language, right? And so even for them, like understanding that they have to put their ego aside, because like it's okay that you don't know, because nobody knows. I mean, there's even accountants that are here, maybe third generation, that they don't even know either. So ask questions and be curious. Like, we don't know everything. Nobody knows everything.
Yeah, and that's how I figured out anything I know with finance. And I'm sure a lot of what you know too is like from being curious and asking and looking it up and getting the answers. Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to share with us? I know that you are maybe 3 hours ahead of me, so I want to be respectful of your time as well.
I thank you for having me, and this has been such an important topic to talk about, and I just really want to give you a shout out and thank you, because I've really seen you as such a leader, like encouraging lots of people in the space and really supporting women, and I love your vibe and what you've been doing. So I'm really glad we've stayed in touch and can continue conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your kind words. I think that there's enough space for us to, keep educating our community. And if anybody's watching that is also part of this personal finance, what I like to say, movement, like we need more people talking about personal finance. Like, sometimes you see, when you see people like, hey, Dina's having a master class, like share it, because sometimes it's just so needed, right? Like people are gonna follow maybe both of us, maybe you, because they identify with you. But I think it's so important that we create this community over competition mentality as well, because we need this. Like we need to be helping our community, our immigrants that need this personal finance education so much. So thank you for your time. I'm honored to have you here, and I know that we will continue the conversation some other time.
I really appreciate it. Take care and stay well. Hi to all your family. Take care.
Thanks, Dina.
Thanks for the time. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Immigrant Finance Show. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already, and leave us a review so we can reach more people to help. Also, did you know we started a free Facebook group for immigrant families who want to build generational wealth? We're doing free monthly trainings covering everything from investing to online business. Plus, you will be in there with a network of other inspiring members of our community. Make sure to join us at facebook.com/groups/immigrant finance, and we'll see you there.